Okay, let's see how this works. It's like a weird glitchy sound. Let me see if I can isolate that real quick. Testing. All right, well, I guess it's as good as it's gonna get. All right, so let me get everything set up, and then we will start the streaming. So today's plan, actually, let me, I just want to do one thing. All right, it's starting to get a little warm finally in New York, so I don't really need my sweater right now, but I do need the lights on. Hold on. All right, so many things to set up. All right, I think I got everything I need set up. This weekend I'm going to be doing some streaming, so it's good that I've sort of worked out all the some of the issues. My plan, hopefully, this weekend is to do Ludum, and what I gotta actually get going here is we're gonna work on some more pixel art, and I'm just gonna focus on. I think I'm just gonna build the Mega Man little demo I was working on yesterday. So I got up early this morning, and I did some extra work on it, and I now built out the core logic that you could sort of see the level is now streaming in, and it randomly chooses from one of 8 templates. I have it like when this actually goes, like when this becomes like a real game, you wouldn't see this happening. This would be off screen. In fact, we could fix that real quick. Let's open up Atom, and I think I had brought in the, yeah, here we go. The offset is here. I went through and I wound up simplifying a lot of the code. Yesterday when I started building this, it was okay, but it was a little convoluted. So I really streamlined it now. And so as you can see, this will work really well. The only thing that I'm seeing is this weird like glitching that's happening on the, it's funny, you guys don't see that on the stream. Well, no, you see some of it. There's like this weird like tearing effect that's happening, and I got to look into what's going on. This might just be some like strange Unity render issue. I have so many problems with Unity, but I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's something I can actually fix. So, long story short, that's sort of the basic idea of what we have set up, and in the project folder, what I did was I wound up creating a new map. No, this is not it. It is this auto tile map, and this will become the basic template for what I'm building. In fact, what I want to do actually is I want to clean this up. I had to do this manually in Photoshop. I want to see if I can, I just have to move everything over by 1. I don't know why this is, oops, oh, crud. All right, so what I need to do is fix this with this, or not, I don't know, maybe. I wish there was like a way I can just move this over. but it doesn't like that idea. So let's do this. We're going to cut this, clear it, and refresh it. And then I'm going to repaste all these tiles down. And then hit A, and that should clean up the auto mapping. What I did yesterday, the problem I had was I had a gap here that was 2 pixels. So all we need to do now is just resize this map, make the width 99, I guess. Wait, what the hell just happened here? Resize map. That should be 89. All right, cool. So the goal is that we'll have this like little template. I can build out little screens down here, and then it'll just randomly sort of stitch those things together. So what I was kind of thinking of doing was I was trying to figure out if there was a way that I could maybe incorporate. I think let's do this. I'm going to create a new. We'll get started. I'm going to create a new task, and we're going to call this Ludum Dare. What Ludum Dare is this? Ludum Dare 41. So okay, we have it's Ludum Dare 41. So let's call this Ludum Dare 41, and we're just going to do some pre-configuration stuff. So what we want to do is make sure all sprites work. Clean up tile map demo or tile map template. Tiled template. Support for collisions and tiles. What else do we want to do? Get object spawning working. Get object spawning working, and add in platformer physics. Wire up controls. I'm not going to do all this stuff today. I'm gonna play around with what I can, but we're gonna focus on some Ludum Dare stuff. And all right, we're gonna save this template out. What I want to do is I want to delete this. I'm going to move this one to the trash. We don't really need this anymore. And this should be sort of good to go. What I need to do next is we have this rule set terrain. I wonder if you even need the set. Terrain set. I guess you need the rule set, because that's what, if I delete this set, it probably would break everything. What we should do is let's go ahead and demos libs. Let's go into the sandbox, and we're going to rename this project. And right now, what I wanted to do was, what is this, 41? Ludum Dare 41. We're going to call this Ludum Dare 41. And we'll just make this a game, and we'll save it. All right. So what I want to do is I want to save an archive of this before we start like breaking everything in here. So now, all right, we should have a backup of it. What I want to do is come into here, and we're going to the tile map, and we're going to output a single tile map. Or we're going to have Pixel Vision 8 generate out a tiled JSON file. Actually, before I do that, what I want to see is, I wonder if I could export as JSON. I'm kind of curious as to what this map looks like as a JSON file. Now I've written a JSON parser for tiled, And what I really wanted to see was, all right, I see. That's interesting. I wanted to see if the rule set was saved. Oh, layers. I see what it did. Compression, L, tile layer, terrain layer, orthogonal. Export as. I think there's where are the preferences? It looked like it was saving. Map properties. I want to save this as XML. Tile render order, right down. From the right down. Background color not set, orthogonal. All right, so let's save this out, and we're going to save a JSON file. What I'm trying to figure out is if the rule set is saved as part of this, because what I can do is, there we go. There's the data for the tile map. There's nothing in this JSON that actually indicates that there's a rule, how it connects the rule set. Yeah, that's not good. What I'm trying to figure out is if there's a way that I can generate out this as a template. But what I think I'm going to do for these art packs is I'm going to include a TMX file. And in the TMX file, does this even say... I wonder if, interesting, I bet my instinct is telling me that just having the, just having this rules.txt file in here tells it to automatically load that. Let's verify that for a second. What we're going to do is let's close this out and open up the JSON tile map. Let's just see if we can draw something. Okay, so that's basically what it is. It's when you have the if you have the rule set file in there, it automatically gets loaded. But this is the JSON. If we save this, it should save back into the JSON file. And if we close this out and open up the auto tile MX, it should be back to the normal. All right, so one thing that I want to, whoops, I just hit the mic. One thing I'm kind of interested in testing out is, I wonder if we can get this, I have an idea. Let's move this to the trash. I'm just going to experiment for a little bit, because one of the things that I want to do before I go into Ludum Dare is, like, if there's any ways that I can optimize my workflow. Like, I'm not really here to build. Oh, I keep hitting the mic. My phone's on the other side of the table, and all right, so what I'd like to do, like I said, I'm not here to build my entire game before Ludum Dare, because that's sort of cheating. Like, I'm cool with, like, I bring in stuff to Ludum Dare. I don't ever really build anything from scratch. It's just I don't have enough time to do that, and that's why you do the jam. I don't do the main compo. But what I wanted to figure out is if there was a way that if I can optimize this workflow, then maybe I could do that today and not have to deal with that while I'm building my game. I kind of like to enjoy Ludum Dare, where actually I could just build a game and not, like, spend my time reinventing the wheel. So what I want to do is let's compress this for a second here. And when I hit compress in Pixel Vision 8, what it does is it generates out a tile map JSON file. And I'm going to open this up with tiled. Let's see if I can just drag this onto tiled. Nope, doesn't like that. Let's try opening the tile map JSON. All right, cool. So that is saved. Why is oh, first off, I have multiple things that are going on. First off, this is hiding my mouse, which is driving me nuts. These are my sprites. All right, this is never really going to work how I'm thinking. But what I eventually have to do is I have to rebuild the template so that it supports 8x8 tiles and not 16x16. And what I was kind of looking at is like, this is what it wound up generating out. And eventually what I'll do is I'll do some like sort of auto detecting that if you have an auto tile map, Pixel Vision 8 will use it. Oh, here we go. Here's, so it opened up it does have the rule set. Interesting. Why is my mouse hidden? I swear, like Unity, like whatever Unity makes, it's like a total mess. All right, there we go. Like, it's just hiding my mouse and it's driving me nuts. All right, this isn't gonna work. So let me stop wasting my time. What I really needed it to do though was I needed it to generate out the flags file. Let's move this to the trash. And now we should have a flags PNG. And the reason why that's sort of important is sorry, just getting messages. All right, so what I'm kind of interested in is let's open up the auto tile map. If I create a new layer, can I actually like set a new tile layer? What I was kind of curious about is flags. Can I change layer properties? Now, see, this is going to be a problem. So one of the things I'm trying to figure out right now is how I can get the collision flags to work correctly. And that's going to be sort of integral in order to actually spawn objects. And what I got to figure out is right now I sort of have a little bit of a problem. The problem is that all the tiles are built around 16x16 and they're not 8x8. So it makes life really difficult. I was almost thinking, like, can I open up, like, should I look into actually rebuilding this? Excuse me, I don't think I know enough about how these rules work to even broach that. I was just trying to figure out what each of these different values do. So much stuff to sort of keep track of when making a game. That's why I like to at least take this day before Ludum really starts, or this time before Ludum starts, to really work out my ideas. And right now I'm just trying to, like, once I get a good workflow down for how I want to deal with the map data, this should make everything a little bit easier to work with. It's just going to take some time to figure this out. So let's see. What are the other things that we can do here? One of what I think I might wind up just doing is I might just draw everything here and treat this as an image, and then have a separate tile map that has the flags. Because the problem I have right now is if I draw the flags, are going to be 16 by 16, and the way that I'm going to be reading the data, the chunk data, is by 8 wide. So okay, let's talk about how this sort of works, right? The way that this works is that you basically just see part of the screen, and while you're here on this part of the screen, I'm copying out a row off screen. So if I go back into the game creator and show you what I built, what's going to happen is you'll see, I think I just fixed it where you won't see it offline off the screen, but it's basically just rendering out the it's randomly taking any one of those windows at the bottom of the screen and generating out this level. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we need to build in order to get spawning working correctly. Just for like shits and giggles, I wonder what happens if we terrain set. Let's see if we add a new thing, and we'll call this flags. And let's see if we set this to 8 by 8. What happens when we try to draw? Whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to embed it in the map. Flags. Flags, and we're going to use 8 by 8. All right, so here are the flags. We're going to create a flag layer. Interesting. So what it does is it aligns it to the bottom left. I wonder if we can fix that. Is there a where are the tile set properties? Draw background color, orientation, grid width and height, image, name. Well, all right. Looks like, long story short, is I could probably just move this above. It looks like I can just use the 8 by 8 tiles. It's just going to be off by a little bit, but that's fine. What I need to do is I want to make these markers. My plan is to use these markers as, or these flags as a way of telling like when something is solid or not. What I'm just noticing though is that the all right, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make a custom flag set for this because it's auto tile flags. It's going to be too much work to actually get this to work the way that I want it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom tile set. Now this is, let's see, what is this? This is 128. So what I want to make this is 256 and 81632. And I'll sort of show you why I'm doing this. Now let's add some magenta to the background so we can sort of see what's going on. And I'm going to, in essence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some custom tiles based on these flags being 16 by 16, and we'll go from there. Now, the trick is that I'm only using tiles right now to output a PNG. So as long as this looks visually right, it doesn't, like, the tile data won't really matter. I'm not going to use the map data. Eventually, what I'll do after Ludum Dare, once I vet out that this theory of mine sort of works, what I'll do is I'll create a new exporter for Pixel Vision 8 that supports auto tiling. I sort of have an idea of how I want to do that. So this is like a good practice for doing that. All right, so in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to have full tiles, and then we're going to have partial tiles. So the reason I'm doing it this way is that it'll allow me to have a little bit more granular control. Because when it comes to something like the when it comes to something like making the walls solid and stuff, I want to make sure that we have full tiles because we need to eat up those 8x8 areas. And then we'll have half tiles that just represent just one piece of the tile. And then we'll use the bottom ones for spawning and the top ones for bigger collision, like tile-based collision. It's a little bit complicated. Again, I'm like still trying to like think this through. And once I get this like as a solid, like once I test out a few of these theories and I see that this stuff works, we should be good to go. Let's merge this down and save it. And then if I come back into tiled, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this now to equal the collision, the auto tile flags, open, and we're going to set this to 16 by 16. There we go. And then if I come back here, you'll now see that this is solid. So like, here's sort of my theory, right? Like this is going to be ground. So what we would do is we would mark this area off as solid on like all these templates, right? And then the hope is that as it copies everything over, it'll save these, it'll wind up saving out these tile flags. And the other end of it is like, let's say we want to spawn something, right? So like in this case, we would want to spawn like a bad guy here. I would just draw that out. And then when I can output, I can basically output this image, and that would create the full all the masking I need. And then I can look at these flag values, which are just colors. The engine converts them, and I can say, okay, well, black is solid, and this light gray is going to be like bad guy 1 or bad guy 2, and just sort of go from there. So, all right, this is working. I think this will work. I guess the real test is, how do we read it, right? And let's delete that mask for a second. And well, what we could do is, let's, as we run through, hold on, let's open up terminal. As we run through this tile map, what we'll do is we'll just read off and make sure that the flags are getting called correctly. So if we look at our code, I created this new method called copy tile data, which basically it gets an offset based on where you are in the map as it's scrolling. and then it just goes and it takes a source row, a source column of tiles, and pastes it into a source, into a destination of tiles. And what we can do is, as we go through, we're going to probably do something like, let's do process tile, and we'll do tile data. So as we, in fact, I can actually get rid of, I don't think I even use this. Next column, current column. Yeah, okay, I do use those. Let me move these up. I was just doing some calculation for the different column stuff. So what we would do is, as we loop through this stuff, we are going to process the tile, source tile. And we're just going to do a very simple, like, if tile data flag equals 0, then end. What we'll do is we want to, we'll just print solid flag. Now, the other thing that we probably need to do is pass in the X and Y offset. Well, we need to pass in the destination X and Y. My thinking is that we pass in this value and this value into the processing tile. So what we should do is update destination offset. And we will do the same thing here as well. What I'm trying to do is I want to pre-calculate this stuff, because then what we're going to do is we'll know exactly where this tile came in. So this is the column and the row. Solid flag at so what we want to double check is that as we go through and we print out stuff, we want to make sure that when we copy over new tile data, we're looking at the flag and we're telling what the flag value is and whether we need to do something. In this case, whether we need to spawn an enemy or add a power up or something like that, right? Right now we're just going to test for collision. So if I rerun this and we output to the terminal, it shouldn't hit anything. Well, it hits a syntax error, right? So it's 87. So let's see, what did I screw up here? Oh yeah, here we go. So right now, it shouldn't be outputting anything. Although I noticed that something weird was happening. It wasn't. It looks like it looks like this method is breaking something. It looked like it didn't. I see what it is. I can't modify this value, it just needs the offset. So all right, that should fix, it was just corrupting the data. That should fix it now. Okay, cool. Now it's copying everything over. And if we look at the output, it's not outputting anything because it hasn't really reached any of those flags. What I actually want to do is if the flag is greater than -1, we'll do this. We'll just output the flag so we can calculate its position. Now, let's go into tiled here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. Well, let's save the map, but let's save this image, browse, and we're going to save this as a hold on, I can't remember the name of the file off the top of my head. Let's just double check that. I'll have it regenerate out the tile map. Like right now there's no flags. Let me just put like a 0 flag here, and then save, and then it should generate out the file. And now what we could do is let's go to File, Export as Image, Browse, and we should have a tile map flags. Save, export. Cool. All right, so my theory is now if I look at this tile map flags, that's an empty file. I come back here and we're going to refresh this. And now if we scroll down to the bottom and we flip to the flag layer, we'll now get the image flags. It's got to go through and render everything. There we go. Hey, look, everything loaded in fine. So now if we run this and look at the output, it's telling us that it's finding a 0 flag at these positions, right? And now what we could do is we could actually spawn an object if we find it at one of these positions. So we don't want to, we don't really want to figure out, we don't need to know every single like solid tile, like it's a little too much to output. So what we could do is let's set this to greater than 0, because we'll use 0 as solid. And now what I'd like to do is we can just figure out how to spawn something. So let's see here. We tested out the auto map generation. That's good. I'm going into the Ludum project. I'm just sort of closing out my Pomodoro. Clean up tile templates for collisions and tiles and get object spawning. Let's get object spawning working. So let's take a look real quick at the sprite sheet and see what we could spawn. I think like a good thing to spawn right now would just be like the health, the 1-up. So what we call this extra life, right? All right. So what we're going to look for is, I just want to make a test and trying to think how I want to update this. So let's do something like this. We're going to process tile. We're going to create a new function. And we're going to call this spawn object. And we'll pass in an ID. In fact, we're going to call this spawn entity. And what we'll wind up doing is we'll create like a very, during Ludum, I'll just create a very basic entity system. Right now, we're going to keep this super simple, and we're going to just do local entities. And we're going to make an array of entities. And the goal is to sort of keep track of as we find an entity, we're going to create it, we're going to push into the entities, and on the update, we're going to update all the entities logic. And we're probably going to keep this very simple. It's either entities, well, we could define all that later. That's what the game jam's for. This is just like the raw, right now I'm just laying down like a little foundational code to make sure that I have what I need when I start the game. So what we'll do is local entity data equals a new table. What we're going to do is we'll create an x value equals x and a y value equals y. And from there, we're going to see if ID equals 1, then and we're going to do entity data dot sprite data equals and in the SB sprites we should have a player what did I call that thing? An extra life. So we're just going to set the sprite data to extra life. And that'll just give us all the sprite data we need to render this out. And then, so let's do this. We're going to basically spawn an entity. We're going to pass it in the tile data.flag. And we're going to do column multiplied by 8 and row multiplied by 8. Right? Because each sprite is basically 8 by 8. So that'll give us an X and Y position. And while we're at it, let's just do, let's move this over here. And we're going to call this, we'll just do spawn entity ID, ID, at X, Y. Right? So in essence, what we're doing here is we're now going to just arbitrarily spawn an entity, and we're going to do table why is this table insert. We're going to put entities, and we're going to do entity data. So in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the entities thing. And we're going to, the goal is that we want to go through and we want to draw out all these entities. So we're going to do something like this. So, and then let's do this. Local. As we add entities, we're going to, we're basically going to, what do we want to do with the entities? As we do this, we're going to increase the total entities by 1. This way we don't have to keep querying how big this array is. We'll just use this and we'll have it as like a fixed loop. So the other thing we want to do now is loop through and draw all entities. Now we're going to do a for total entities, and we're just going to do draw sprites, and we're going to use we'll do local we'll do entity dot sprite data sprite IDs. Actually, what we should just do is well, this is going to start getting this is getting like super complicated as soon as we start having like a ton of animation and stuff, but let's just keep it really simple for right now. If we abstract out the way that we update and render this stuff, it should be pretty straightforward to just add whatever we want later on. Lua is sort of weird in that we can't really create classes. So I wind up with these like lots of like objects, and that part of my brain just like hates doing that. But all right, we should just do entity x, entity.y. The width is going to be width. We're not going to flip it. We're not going to change the draw mode, the color, offset, use scroll. We're going to do everything as is. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of leverage the fact that draw sprites allows us to draw a sprite based on the scroll position. And hopefully if we spawn this guy off screen and we scroll the screen, it'll just start moving to the left, and it'll take that into account. I don't know if any of this is going to work. That's the cool part of writing code, is that you don't know. What we'll do is we're gonna do a really quick test, and we're just going to manually draw one of these dudes by hand, or at least call it. So let's just manually call in our constructor spawn entity 1, and we're going to set the x position to 160 and the y position to, where the hell is our player being rendered? 94, right? Draw sprites. Let's see if we can do this at 94. Actually, let's just make it 100. This way we can sort of see it on screen. Let's see if this works. Oh, I just saw it and it disappeared. Interesting. Why did it do that? Let's change the speed to 0 and redraw it and see if it just stays there on the screen. Oh, it drew and then it disappeared. Why is it disappearing? Zero, zero. Huh. Hold on one second. Somebody is calling me. I'll be right back. All right. The joys of trying to do this streaming stuff during the day. Okay, so let's see. What I was trying to figure out was why this is broken. Let's see if we can just disable the scroll position Y for a second here. I think that's the problem, is the Y position, but let's double check. There we go. All right, so that is working. And now if we reset this speed to 10, let's see if it should move, and then it'll eventually just go off screen. Perfect. All right, so if we set the scroll to 50, I think what's going to happen. I think what's happening is that I need to play around with the draw sprites and tell it not to always render on the screen, so it'll loop around, but to take the scroll position into account. I think that's what the problem is, so we can fix that real quick. So where is our draw sprites call? I just got to remember what all these, even I don't remember all this crap. So draw sprites, whoops. So what we need is this to be false, false, draw mode, sprite, 0 for the color offset, on screen set to false, but we're going to use the scroll position set to true. And we're not going to define any custom bounds. So now what should happen is if I refresh this, he's now at the same, he'll be at the same position as the player, and then what we're going to do is, because remember I set it to the same height as the player, he should wrap around the screen. Perfect. And that's sort of like, that's what happened in Nintendo games. Like basically any sprites that went off screen wound up wrapping around. What you don't see that's actually happening is I have something in the game engine called Overscan, and it allows me to crop out the right, excuse me, all of a sudden I feel like burping a lot. It crops out the far right 8 pixels and the bottom 8 pixels so that I can actually hide stuff off screen. So, okay, that's why you don't see it immediately when it like wraps around. You don't see it immediately wrap. As soon as it hits the edge, it's actually hitting the overscan buffer area. All right, so now what we need to do is let's just readjust all the other positions. Okay, so here what we would do is this is good, this is good. Let's reset the scroll position. And now I just got to figure out where the hell it puts the, where it puts this dude. Or this little, all right, so it's going to put it down there. All right, so what we need to do is take a look at where am I going to spawn this entity. Now, since I'm manually doing this, 98. Why? It must take into account the scroll Y. So what we would do is scroll position Y minus 94. And in this case, what we're doing is we're offsetting the scroll's Y position. Is that actually right? Let me say I put it at 30. I guess it's, oh, you know what, 30, 60. I have to look into why that's happening. That's kind of interesting. 60, 80. $80, 74. $76, right? We can do something like this. So it basically, now I'm gonna have to shift the let's do this. Let's do entity color offset. Let's see here. When we create this guy, we're going to change his color offset. We're just going to swap his palette the same way we did with the player, which spawn entity, here we go. Equals 4. we should make sure that this color offset by default is set to 0 so it doesn't throw an error. And now if we rerun this, there's our player's head, and he's just going to go over and go off screen. So now the next thing that I want to do is make sure that once it goes completely off screen, that we actually get rid of it. And we're basically going to need to remove it from the thing. So there's going to be 2 loops here. The other loop that we'll do on update is we'll update the scroll position, and then we're going to basically update a loop through and update all entities. And what we're going to do is we want to see if the if entity X is less than scroll position X, then and we'll have to do table remove entities I, and we will do total entities equals total entities minus 1. So this is sort of tricky. We can't do this. We actually can't do this in the in this I loop, because if we removed this from the I loop, it would basically throw the loop off and break everything. What we need to do is loop through everything, calculate which ones need to be removed, and then at the end clean it up. So clean up entities. So there's just not much we can do here. What we'll do is we're going to do entity equals true. Or actually what we could do is remove equals true. And finally, we'll just loop back through the entities. What we need to do is this local. There it is. All right, so local to remove. Local off screen equals a new table, and then we'll do table insert entity. Well, actually, we're just going to do I. We'll mark the position, and we'll do off screen. Now, I've done this so many times. Like, I've screwed this up so many times where I'm like, hey, I'm going to like delete crap off the screen and see if like, you know, I can keep this optimized. And then what winds up happening is that I screw up the loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep a list of all the things that are off screen as we go through and update it. In fact, what we need to actually do is add this back here, end. And all right, so we're going to look at this entity. We're going to see if it's off screen. Else to do update animation. Next, so if it's not off screen, we'll update its animation. Then what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all the stuff that's all the entities that are off screen, right? And we're going to pull out the entity. Well, actually, all we need to do is this. So we're just going to remove from entities off-screen I, which won't affect the main loop, and then we're going to decrease the local entities. And that should remove the objects from the array. Let's give this a try and see if it works. So our little head's going to go by. I would speed this up in the game, but right now I just want to test it. And then boom, it's removed. So what we need to make sure is that I want to do one more thing here. We're going to say width equals 0. What I want to do is we're going to set the width. Actually, we'll just make it W. I don't need to like boil the ocean today. What we want to do is I'm going to take this and we do sprite data. Or actually do entity data dot W equals sprite entity dot width multiplied by 8. So each of the sprite data has a width to them, and it's based on how many sprites they are. So we're going to multiply this by 2, which is the total number of sprites, and we'll get the actual width of the object. We could also calculate the height too. So the height is going to be equal to math seal. The height is equal to math seal entity sprite data sprite IDs divided by the width multiplied by 8. Let's do this. Spawn a size. All right, so now we should get the correct width and height, because what we need to do is, as we're scrolling through, we need to make sure that when this guy goes off screen, it's scroll position X plus entity width. We should just do it with, well, we can do width. That should be enough. Let's see if that works. Or it just like blows off my face. All right, so it'll literally be like right before it runs off the frame, or as soon as it runs right off the frame. Oh, I know, it's minus. Let's see. It should have spawned an entity. It gave us a size of 16 by 16. It's going to keep going, and as soon as it hits right off the edge of the screen, boom, it gets removed. Now I didn't see it loop over to the other side, but let's see if that just, yeah, it did come over a little bit. So what we would probably need to do is take the width divided by 2 and test that out. Because technically, what you got to remember is with the way the overscan works is that only half of it is off screen, and the other half is on the other side of the screen. But the overscan is hiding it. There, so now you don't see it. And I can illustrate what's going on a little bit better by if I come into here And let's go ahead and I'm gonna remove the overscan on the right hand side and save it. And if we rerun it, you'll see this guy's gonna come by. The head's gonna go off to the left, and then part of it's gonna show up on the right hand side. And then you see as soon as half of it goes in, it disappears. So that will now allow us to do, whoops. That's going to allow us, so now we can basically loop through and update all the entities. We can clean up entities that are off screen, right? That spawn entity, I'm going to make a new method here called function remove. I'm going to try to consolidate this into a method. All right, so let's also fix the speed because it's like driving me nuts. It's running so slow. Here we go. So now you can see it's running a little closer to what full speed would be, and it sort of removed it off the screen. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's close enough. I mean, we could probably, it probably has a lot to do with the way the speed works. We should figure out, I'm just looking at, it sort of got pulled out a little bit too soon, and I'm not sure why it got removed. We update the scroll X position off screen. It's fine. I mean, if you actually go back to old Nintendo games, they stuff like that flickered like all the time. Like you'd see just objects like completely disappear, or things wouldn't be lined up correctly, and that's just sort of the way that the Nintendo worked. Let's see. All right, so we're almost done with this Pomodoro. I might take a quick 5-minute break, or I might have to take a quick 10-minute break because I need to check on something. But I think this is looking good. Like, I think the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna take a quick like 10-minute break. I have some people doing some work in my house, so I want to go check on them. And when I come back, what we'll do is we'll get the we'll go and we'll get the other stuff working, and I'm just trying to think of what I want to do. I think the next thing we want to do is just get this spawning correctly. So how about this? How about we take a quick break, and then I will come back. So what's the time right now? Let's take a look here. So quick break. Back at what is it? It's 10:47. So let's just say 10:58. All right, so we're gonna make this a quick break, and then I'll be right back. I'm back. What did I miss? Game Boy. I don't know. My login to Pixel Vision is not working. What's going on? What's the problem with the login? All right, let's run this. Clean up tile support for collision, which we're reading now, and get object spawning working. All right, so next up, what I want to do is let's do some basic stuff. I'm glad to see this is still running correctly. Didn't throw any errors while I was gone. What I want to get working now is let's do some basic spawning. And in every single one of these, I'm going to add a spawn point. And let's just see if this works. The reason I'm adding it to all of these is because, well, I need to export as an image. I need to make sure that we see it because it's randomly pulling out the images. Tilemap flags, save, export, yes. All right, so we're gonna rerun this, and now, all right, it just spawned. It spawned the guy there, and then it spawned another one there. It's a little wonky with the way that it's spawning. Like, I feel like it's spawning it off the screen. But it is spawning now. So that's like the basic foundation of what we need in order to get things spawning. What I'm interested in is why it's spawning so high up. I mean, what we could do is we could do some offsetting stuff. So I'm not terribly worried about that. Again, this really has a lot more to do with the fact of where I'm putting that flag. So like if that's where it gets spawned, I can do some logic to make that go down. Like just as an example, when we go here and we create we spawn this entity, I could change the entity data for him to be like +16. And actually, while we're at it, let's remove this this here. Oops, 109. All right. So there. So it's so you can see I can change the offset of this position. I had that set to 16. I bet you if I change it to something like, what would I do? Where the heck did I put that? Spawn entity, like let's make this 12. There you go. So that's like, in theory, how I would go about spawning it. I'm kind of curious as to why it's spawning it off the screen. Like now it seems to be working fine. What I think is happening is what we should do is check to see that if entity X position is greater than scroll position X plus 160, 150. So there is some like built-in logic for like making sure that something stays on the screen or not. But in this case, what we're trying to do is we only want to render it when it's within viewing distance. So there, I just saw it flicker still. So if it's less than scroll position X plus 160, render it. I should look to see, like, what we'd wind up doing is, for something like this, let's do some testing, right? So I would probably do something like this where, let's see, time map flags, save, export, yes. In order to fix this bug where it's like looping a little bit around the edge, what I would want to do is come in here and let's see, what would I need to do? So that's the tile map where basically when we go to see, when we draw the next column, let's make sure that we only, here we have a random value. We're just going to set this to 1 for right now. And this way we'll always draw the first, template. And now we could test out the position at every spot. So that's where it gets spawned. And like that spot looks good. And it's just going to keep spawning that like over and over again, right? Let's just go into Photoshop and we'll just do this in Photoshop instead of having to keep doing it inside of the tile map editor. So, okay, at that position, it's spawning ahead of time. And what's happening is you can't actually see it because it lines up correctly. So what we're going to do is, I think this one does it too. You just can't see it because it's respawning at the same position every time. You probably see it for a flicker. Okay. The reason for this is that we're too far out for the columns. So destination should be 19. We want it to be drawing these columns like literally right as soon as it is on the bleeding edge. So in fact, let's do this. Let's come back here and let's set this math random to 1 or 2. And then in this PSD, we're just going to work our way backwards. And now it should be random wherever it appears. So here we're in the first map. Let's see where the second one pops up. So this is the second one, and we're not seeing it yet until right there. So I think that sort of solved the problem. I bet you just by changing that one thing, we can actually get rid of this here because it's not going to wrap. It should be in the dead zone. Let's see. So the way I'm just looking is I'm just looking at the left-hand side of the screen and seeing if anything weird flickers. So like it did it there. I mean, I could tighten this up a little. I'm not too worried about it right now. Let me add this back in and see if that fixes the flicker. No, it's still flickering, so that's fine. Okay, what we'll do is we're just going to leave it as is. I'm going to walk through, and I just want to test out each of these positions and see if the flicker is more apparent in one place than another. I mean, again, I don't want to like build. I'm not building the whole game today, right? That's what Ludum Dare is for. I just want to get these like really basic core mechanics in place. But I mean, for the most part, the spawning stuff is working pretty well. And there's like lots of ways that we could basically animate this. Again, that's what I'll save for the weekend. But I really would love to see. I don't know if you guys see it as badly as I do. It looks like it on my preview of the stream, but there's like a lot of like tearing. And it's funny, the tearing that I'm seeing in the recording isn't the same tearing that I'm seeing on my screen. I wonder if this is just a Mac thing. Unity like rendering in the Mac is like really rough. I don't know why it tears so much. And I did get rid of the buffering or the whatever that V blanking is to make it run faster. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe on the Macs you really need to use it. But okay, so I think that's a success. Like we're able to spawn some basic stuff. Let's go back in here and let's open up the. Let's open back up the random level stuff. And yeah, it's cool. I'm really liking this. I think, you know, the next thing to do is going to be to, like, what I'll do over the weekend is I'll add in the physics and stuff like that. Again, I don't want to like build everything today. But I think this is pretty good. What else? What else is on the list here? So, get object spawning working. Great. Hey, DigiGameBoy, what were you saying was the problem with the login? Was it the email that you got from me? I generated that. Well, I was trying to give people who bought Pixel Vision 8 up until just recently before the beta. I gave them special access to an account, and yeah, unfortunately the links were broken. So I have to resend out all the emails, which I'm probably going to do in a little bit. I won't be able to stream for much longer today, but I honestly feel like I got this in a good enough place where I'm not like worried about it. I wonder if I was debating whether I should try to get the physics in. That probably wouldn't be a bad way to spend the rest of my streaming time. So, games. Let's I'm gonna take a look at Reaper Boy V2. Yeah, if the URL, yeah, if you're talking about DigiGameBoy, if you're talking about the link that I emailed you, the links are all broken. They weren't generated out correctly. So I'm going to send out new links later today. So don't worry about them. All right, let's see. Micro platformer. I'm going to copy over the micro platformer. And let's load script. Micro platformer. And this is something that was ported over by Matt Hewson. He wrote it for Pico 8 and then ported it to Pixel Vision 8 early on. I have been porting it ever since and keeping it up to date. What it basically does is it keeps track of physics, just very basic platformer physics. And what I would like to do is rewire this so that it actually does physics for sort of everything. Now, I'm going to stand and talk. What my plan is for this is to basically, we're going to have some like really simple physics. I just want to make sure that things can jump up and down and they don't collide into walls. There's no direct physics collision detection between objects in the sense of where if like one object hits another object, it pushes it back. This is purely just like based on the level's geometry. And that being said, what we're going to do is I just want to make sure that the my audio is working. Like I feel like the audio is working, but testing. Okay, it is working. It's just it's funny, the preview for the sound doesn't look really good. It doesn't look right. Keeps dropping down when I'm talking. All right, so what I want to do in order to abstract this thing out is I'm probably going to pass in a bunch of entities, and as long as the entities have all of the properties that this player has, it'll just calculate physics. So what I gotta do is I just gotta remember how I implemented this. I don't think I have I have movement, fine. And then there's a player draw. So if self player sprite data, sprite IDs, self.player.sprite ID. Draw the player represented as sprite 1. So what I want to do is still calculate all the physics here. Oh, I remember. This I think this only works for 8x8 sprites. So I have a feeling I'm going to wind up rewriting this whole thing. Just trying to take a look at I almost feel like I should rewrite this from the ground up. How do we want to do this? So what I almost feel like doing is writing out another. I want to just write out another class to handle this, and I'll keep the micro platformer stuff there, but what I should just do is file, new file, and how do you spell right, is that spelled correctly? There we go. we'll do simple physics.lua. And let's just load script simple physics. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to abstract them just yet, but we're going to I'm just going to throw a bunch of like code in, and we'll just see how this works. So we'll start with we'll do physics entities. We'll do function add entity, function so we're going to add an entity, we're going to remove an entity. We are also going to do a function update physics, and function there really is no draw physics. This is only just going to do update. And then what we'll do is table insert target physics entities. And here we'll do table remove physics entities, and remove entity target ID. Does table.insert does that return insert or remove? Does it return the ID of where it gets number of lines read? Get n insert insert and remove a special and frequently used without a position. Insert the elements at the last position of the array and therefore moves the element. All right, so what we would do is just say we do total physics entities equals 0, and here we do +1, and we're going to set this target ID. We'll just do PID equals total physics entities. And then we can actually just keep track by passing in the entity. We can just pass that in, and if does not nil. So, all right, what we're going to do is, this is the basic logic for adding and removing an entity to the physics engine. And then what we're going to do is, for each entity, total physics entities what did I spell wrong? Oh, nothing. It just didn't like that all together right there. All right, so for each of the total physics entities, we would probably just do something like to do calculate. I. All right, so that's sort of what we would do to calculate through what we would do. Now, in order to actually do the physics, what we need to do is, let's see here. Let's open up the micro platformer, and we're going to pull out some of this stuff. Like, what we're going to need is add new fields. So we're going to do stuff like, what we need to do is add target dx equals 0, target dot dy equals 0, target dot is grounded equals false, target dot direction equals false, target dot jump velocity equals 3.0, target dot time equals 0, target dot delay equals 0.1. There's like a few other things that we probably are going to have to deal with, but we'll do gravity equals 0.2, solid, or we'll just do flag ID equals 0, flag equals -1. I don't need the jump sound or the hit sound. Micro platformer. All right, so player time. What is the player time used for? I think that was something I used specifically for this game, so that's fine. All right, so what I'm looking to figure out is, so basically when we're going to have some extra logic for actually making the player move up and down. That's going to be different from everything else. In fact, this simple physics won't even handle any of that. Let's see here. I just want to make sure there's no errors. So we're going to do this. Add entity. I don't even think the player is really a thing yet. What am I doing? Scroll position. Trying to think of where I would want to set up the player. Let's create a new player class. So local equals nil. x equals x and y equals y. And then we're going to start taking some of this stuff out of the out of global space and put it into the actual player. Let's see, frame 1, frames, frame delay, and time. So that'll give us the basic stuff we need for the player. And let's remove this right now. And then what I got to figure out is I just got to remap all this stuff. So let's go down here first. And when we go to draw the sprite data for frames, this is really going to be player data.frames. And this would be player.x, player data.y. And I just want to make sure there's nothing else that I'm pulling out of that. So that's that. That's the player frame data. Let's call create player, and we'll pass in this value. So that's where we're going to create the player. What we're going to wind up, what we're going to run into though is there's going to be a little bit of an issue here. When we go to update the animation, we aren't going to get the right data. So what I want to do is get animation data from target. What's the noise? Get animation data from target. What we're going to do is we'll say that local time equals player. Well, let's do this. Local target equals player. And then we'll do target.time. Actually, I'm just going to do this all here. So target.time, target.time, target.time delta, time frame. The reason I'm doing this here is because I'm going to, eventually I'll just abstract this out and we'll have all of the different animation for each of the entities. I'll just run the entities through this loop. Calculate the new scroll position. To need to lead to loop through all entities that need to be animated. All right, cool. So we'll do that later. Let's see if this actually still runs. I might have broken everything. Nope. Line 220. Line 220. Sprite data, player data. Oh, right. Okay. What's happening here is that I'm not returning this player data. Error 222. Sprite data, player data. I see what I did here. 222 should just be player. If player does not equal nil, then n. Right, so we won't draw the player unless we have the player. All right, 226. Draw sprites, sprite data. Oh, I see. This is just player. All right. 226. Still doesn't like this idea. Sprite data should be, oh, here we go. This should be player.frame. One, 6, 1. Target is the player. So if this does not equal null, then we'll update the animation. One, 6, 2. Yeah, we need to get the time delta, which comes in. Almost done with this refactor. There we go. Hey, look, it's animating again. So the idea really is that once we create a player, we should be able to register him with the physics engine, and then update the physics engine. Now, since nothing's happening, let's do this. Let's end this. We'll start adding up the platformer physics. Again, I'm probably just going to save all the physics logic for like when I'm really doing Ludum Dare. I just wanted to set up the basic foundation, but I also have to stop. I'm going to have to stop streaming pretty soon, anyways. So I think this is all the work. I mean, I got a good chunk of stuff ready for Ludum Dare. Tomorrow, my plan is I'll be streaming all afternoon, and then probably into some of the night, and then on Sunday I'll be streaming for most of the morning and everything as well. And I just have to work around some of the activities over the weekend. And then hopefully on Monday, I have an early doctor's appointment. And then after that, I'm going to, I'll just stream the rest all day Monday. And then that'll just kill Ludum Dare for me. And that'll be the end of it. We'll see if I can actually get everything. See if I can get a game done. I mean, I feel like I got a good enough like basic foundation here to build something kind of fun. I'm not ending right now. I'll probably end in a little bit. I would like to see if we could just get, like, let's see if we can just get some basic physics working. So here's what I would do. This is the micro platform. This is the simple physics. What I would do is, we're going to add an entity. So we'll add entity for player. And then what we're going to do is we're going to update the physics. Adapting the Pixel Vision workflow. Yeah, the Pixel Vision workflow, it's a little weird, but I feel like once you get it, it sort of makes sense. But that's like any framework, right? A big part of what I want to start doing over the next few months is just optimizing the workflow a little bit. All right, let's do the scroll, off screen, remove everything. And then the last thing we'll do is update the physics. All right, so what I also want to do is I want to pass in the time delta because I might need to make the physics a little bit more accurate. So time delta, here we go. All right, so technically the idea should be now that this will add this player to the physics engine and there's no physics being applied, but it's still calculating the physics. The way that we would do this is, if we take a look at the way the micro platformer physics work, is that the player is always falling down. That's sort of how basic physics works, right? Because there's gravity. So what we want to do is accumulate gravity, right? And apply gravity to the player's position. So we'll start by just sort of copying this piece over, and that should give us basic, basic physics. So we would have our target entity, dx and dy. We have gravity, and then we take the position of the y value and do this. Now, I believe that this should actually be multiplied by the time delta, but I'm not going to get into that right now. What I kind of wanted to see is, there we go, gravity, woo! Eventually, like, becomes like a singularity where it happens. It gets to the point where it's like so fast that it winds up like looping. There's some things that we could do to actually check that so that it doesn't accumulate so much. One of which is, I believe, like normally what I do is I sort of check that dx never gets greater than a certain value. So make sure the player doesn't accumulate speed if they're in a falling loop, right? So we'll just copy this out for right now, and then we'll piece this back together piece by piece, right? So end. I don't know why I'm just rewriting this. Let me just copy this. Right, so what did I break? Oh, right here. I need to make this target entity. So as you can see, now when the player falls, it doesn't just get so fast. It doesn't accumulate so much gravity that it just never ends. It hits like a maximum falling speed, and that's sort of its terminal velocity. Now, now all we need to do is, as we're falling, look below the player and get the Y position and get the tile position. So if I go back here and we take sort of a look at how this works, what we're going to do is you see last is grounded. So let's do this. Before we cap the movement, we're going to keep track of the last grounded position. I'm going to clean up these variable names. I really just, I'll just copy this stuff over. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to see if the thing is grounded. If it's not, and then we're always going to say that, all right, on this frame, we're now resetting the flag that it's grounded. So first, save last grounded value. Reset is grounded flag because we're falling. And then we're just going to keep on, let's see, we're going to keep on, so I was just looking at something. I noticed that a message came in, and I just had to look at it real quick. Okay, so only check for floors when moving downwards, right? So we're going to copy this all the way to the end. So here what we're going to do is we should actually just copy this whole logic block, and then we'll try to figure it out. So only look for floors when moving downwards. So I'm going to remove this for a second, paste this in here, And now we just got to change all these values. What I'm hoping is that this will just sort of work. There's not a lot of physics that we need for this game. I'm not going to look for. I'm only going to look for physics in front of the player and below the player, because in this game you really can't move back and forward. So there's no point in checking all the directions. Like, I might add some like basic like platforms above the player, but I don't even know if I'm going to get that far. I really don't want to. I have to decide how much scrolling and stuff I want to do, but we'll see. Like when the player jumps, I might move the camera up a little, but I don't know if I'm ever going to have him like get onto a platform. Because then once he gets on a platform, that means he's going to get even higher, and it adds a lot more complexity to the game. So let's do this. We're going to look to see if entity dy is greater than 0, then we're going to need to check the position. So right now, I'm just going to use this as is, and I think this stuff is going to be a little off. Where is the scroll position? We'll get a reference to the scroll position. We're going to check to see the center to the bottom of the player, which we need to fix because we're going to use the entity's actual width and height, which is what's missing from Matt's code. And as we go down, we're just going to look to see if the target entity, well, actually, we're going to look to see if flag, we're going to see if the flag value equals flag ID. And if it does equal this, then we've hit a solid tile. And if that's the case, we're going to just reset the player's dy, set player is grounded to true. We want to continue what we did earlier where we capped the dy position. Let's get rid of this, which is just some like frame logic in there. So we're going to stop the velocity, and we need to this should actually floor 8 multiplied by 8. This isn't actually right. I need to save and restore previous y value. So this is accurate. Basically, it looks like Matt's doing some like basic math to refigure out where the players should be, and then just putting them back in position based on the tile. What we're going to do is we'll just keep track of the last y position, do all the calculations on that, and if we hit a value, we'll just reset it back to where it was before. I don't know. I have to look into this. This isn't bad. It's just I prefer to like get rid of math floor and stuff like that and simplify the physics as much as possible. All right, so I think this should do something. So all right, it's going to keep falling until it hits the ground. Now it did hit a ground somewhere. What I just don't understand is what did it hit? It hit solid, and then it went through the floor again. Now, what I'd kind of like to figure out is I would like to see what it sees. I want to make sure that it eventually gets through and finds the right flag. Like it should be hitting a flag that's 0. I hate you, Lua. So it does hit 0 at some point. So one thing I think it's happening is that and this takes into account the scroll position, X and Y, divided by 8. Math.ceil. What I want to do is make sure that I want to try to clean up this position that it looks for the tile correctly. So it should be math.ceil. It should do something like this. So basically it will, it's going to look for the flag. It's going to take the target X position plus the scroll X position, which offsets it. And it's going to figure out where it is in the tile map, I guess. So what I wanted to see real quick, this should be the top left tile of the player. I just want to output what tile it thinks it's looking at. And then I'm going to go back and try to figure this out. So okay, so let's see here. This is sort of what I was afraid of. It's getting negative X and negative Y. Oh, no, I see what's happening. That's my fault. I didn't put a string in between this stuff. So it looked like it was negative. There we go. All right. I want to clear the log file real quick. So now, let's do this. What's happening now is that for some reason it's no longer... Yeah, look at this. Okay, here's the problem. It's this tile set doesn't exist. So it's out of bounds. So let's come back here and let's take a look at what we did. The target Y position plus the scroll Y position divided by 8. Because this should never change. 53, 52, 51, 48, like why X is changing, completely beyond me. Because the target X position should literally always be the same. Now, the target Y position, on the other hand, is going to always be changing because we're falling. Now, how do I want to fix this? The problem we have is that the I think I have a check for this. I think in some part I wound up actually correcting it, where if I did something in Reaper Boy. Where is the main game? There was something where I went through and I think I was checking the Y value and resetting it at the end of the update loop. Or here we go. I was wrapping the position of the player. And the reason I was doing that at the very end of this loop after I updated was because what happens is like, okay, imagine the player is falling to the ground, right? As he keeps falling, he's accumulating a Y value. Eventually the Y value goes off the screen and it looks like he's wrapping back to the top of the screen, but the Y value is just really large. So what we need to do is at the end of this logic, we're just going to replace the, we only need to do this on the Y value. Again, the player never really moves. So what we're going to do is, whoops, bounds. All right, so what we're trying to do is we're going to simply keep the Y value within the boundaries of the screen. So if I restart this now, it should have hit solid. What I'm concerned about is you can see now, all right, luckily you can see now that the Y bounds are actually, it's looping instead of going into like 200, 300, whatever. What I'm kind of confused about is why X is changing. That value should always be the same. Oh, no, okay, I see. No, it is fine. It is moving because the screen is scrolling. Right? So 27, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I just want to make sure that as we're going through all this, it works. All right. So I'm going to open up... I'm going to go back in here and let's set... This is the tile map flags. Where's tiled? I'm just going to go ahead and set this, oops. I'm going to set this whole thing to solid. No. Whoops, I'm doing this in the wrong layer. There we go. What the hell's going on here? Why is this all of a sudden now? Oh, because it's selected. Okay. All right, so now what I just want to make sure is that as it goes through and plays that it always has the it always has this like bottom area. So let's whoops. All right, let's export this image with the collision flags and see if we can get this to tile map flags. see if we can get it to at least understand that the first layer is solid, and then we'll go from there. There we go. And now it should just be copying over that solid collision flag. Now you're seeing it's bouncing up a lot, and that's because it's just, I'm not really calculating where his real position is. Also, because he's bigger than 8x8, the physics are a little off, right? But what we could do just to verify that this is actually still working correctly, let's go and delete this side. And what I want to make sure is that this collision, this solid collision layer should be automatically rewriting. Now, in the beginning, when it starts off, it's going to be a little, you're going to see one screen without, that it doesn't come from one of these templates, right? That's sort of by design. Let's export this image, update the tile map flags, and then let's just see if this thing copies over correctly. Cool. All right, so everything, oh no, I lied. So it doesn't seem like it's copying the flags over correctly. Well, that's not fun. I just want to see something else. I'm trying to figure out where export as an image, save, export, yes. I want to see if it'll eventually catch itself. And just, I'm trying to figure out what's not copying correctly. We should hit the end, and then let's see if it catches. All right, so it would appear as if we are not correctly getting all of the flags. Let's see why. All right, so my theory is that it's only, I'm off by one, when I'm copying all this stuff, that I'm actually off by one row. So let's see if we can fix that in the code. There should be a total, and we're gonna make this 30. No, wait, I lied. Template columns, we're gonna make this 23. All right. There we go. Nope. Man, that stinks. Oh, I suppose I'm doing, that's the width. $30. That stinks. Why is it not copying that over? Now, is it just not copying any of the stuff over? Huh. All right, well, I got another minute to fix this and then I got to finish. Maybe I'm just not, let me look at the copy code. Tile, source, offset flag. Next X. Huh. All right, well, I think I actually have to end this stream. It's getting a little late on my end. And yeah, all right, well, either way, I got a good amount done. Whoops, unable to save. I got a good amount of stuff done. I'll start this officially tomorrow, and we'll try to figure out what's going on with the collision, and get all this stuff working. But I think for the most part, I think we had a sort of productive stream. And you know, thanks everyone for watching. And I will be around probably tomorrow afternoon, Eastern time, working on my Ludum Dare stuff. And then from there, we will. From there, we'll see if I can actually make a little game out of it with during the weekend. So thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully see you guys tomorrow.